Hi guys, I am John Carrick, author of Legacy of a Mad Scientist and the Legend of Ashley Fox. Today we're looking at 100 Bullets 66 to see what hints, tips, and tricks we can take from Brian Azzarello and Eduardo Risso, with Dave Johnson doing the covers and Patricia Mulville doing the covers and the colors. And this is Lono smoking one of Augustus Medici's cigars and complimenting him on it and asking for another one, while these guys are chasing people down and robbing them. Lono is telling Augustus Medici the story of how he met Agent Graves. The night Nixon resigned, he was 12 and someone set a bum on fire. And the police arrested everyone who looked like they might have known someone who had something to do with it. And they found Lono at 12 years old with a pocket full of numbers and a duffel bag full of Kona gold, either marijuana and betting numbers or deliveries that he was supposed to make. And he was 12, so he got sent to some quaint reform school where he choked a teacher. He stuffed a ruler down a teacher's throat. And then at 14, he went to death row, which is where Graves found him. Lono is basically interviewing for the job as Augustus Medici's warlord, which he kind of already has. Because Shepard's dead and there's a power vacuum amidst the Minutemen and amidst the 13 families, Lono is very easily going to lean into that power vacuum and take over. The guy sitting with his legs crossed is not the guy in charge. Always remember that. If you ever see a guy sitting down like this, that guy is not the boss in the room. Lono is the guy in charge. And Graves might have been fit to scare Lono off at one point, but not anymore. And because none of the members of the trust keep private armies that are worth a damn, more than half a dozen soldiers that can't be taken out by one special forces operative, because none of them keep brigade strength on hereditary estates, none of them are really ready to deal with Lono. Lono is going to bring, if he has to, well, in his case, they just skip past it like they did with the last issue. The last issue, they should have shown how he captured Carlito Fulvio, how he captured his sons, and how he killed them, instead of just showing the end result. And cutting that end result between two different scenes back and forth like what we're about to start doing here. In this one, we cut back and forth between Augustus Medici and Lupe Hughes and Victor Ray sitting down with Megan Dietrich. And Lono is playing a very different game than what Augustus Medici is. And it's interesting too. What I really think is that these are interchangeable sides of an argument, and they chose to give Lono the interesting, strategic, the smarter side. What made Julius Caesar powerful, the reason Julius Caesar was assassinated, wasn't because he got revenge on his enemies, it was because he forgave them. The lesson that Julius Caesar had for all the monarchs of the medieval times was, do not tolerate a traitor to live, because if you do, they will unite behind your back and stab you on the Senate floor, which happened to be the steps of a theater built by Pompey. But that's where Senate was being held at that time. Right now it's called the Argentinian Square, and it's a sanctuary for feral cats. It's kind of a shame, but it's also kind of fitting in some ways. So Megan Dietrich arrives for dinner where Lupe Hughes is stationed nearby, and he is in communication with Victor Ray by telephone. Nowadays it'd be by earbud, but whatever. And Vic is telling him, yeah, you like her, huh? You might get a chance with her. Maybe you'll get a chance with her. And then he says, but imagine if you could. And Lupe says, is there a chance of that? And he says, absolutely fucking not. Stick to the plan no matter what. Loop's like, all right. So Vic and Loop are planning something for Megan, who has just come in and sat down at the bar in a restaurant where she usually eats, and she's got 6 goons with her. And Loop orders dinner. Well, I guess we're going to cut back to this for a minute. Lono knows Crete. Crete is not a Minuteman, but Crete should be the tip of the iceberg. Augustus Medici should have a restaurant full of people with him everywhere he goes. And Lono is enjoying Medici's fine cigars. They're in Miami, so presumably they're Cuban or Havana or whatever. I don't smoke cigars, so I don't give a shit. But Lono makes a point of threatening Mr. Medici and sort of calling out Crete's bluff. And he goes to light Medici's cigar, and Crete grabs his hand. And he does it so fast that he wakes up the sleepy sandwich maker, coffee maker at the counter. And Lono tells Crete that he wants him working for him. And that he wants, here's the big thing. Lono tells Medici not to kill Helena Kostya and Javier Vasco. That having killed Carlito Fulvio was message enough. And now if you forgive the other 2 and keep them in the trust, but now there's 10 families. 3 families have been killed. Daniel Perez, who I think was stealing, that was issue 25. I'm missing issue 7 too. But issue 25 was the summit in Atlantic City where Daniel Perez was murdered. And then issue 56 was Wiley Times in New Orleans, killing Rose Madrid's father, Anwar, mostly because he had to kill Rose. Because presumably, if she went to Miami to move against the Medicis, or to involve the Medicis in a move against her father, that's really her father's fault. And then he was running his mouth when Wiley was trying to get his revenge against Shepard, and ended up kidnapping Shepard. And Shepard ended up getting killed anyhow, but by accident. So now we have Lono kind of calling the shots, the head demon, the loudest demon, the biggest demon in the room. And Megan is ordering dinner, and so is Loop, and Loop wants a hamburger and fries. And he insists on fries. He insists that the cook, if he has a deep fryer and a potato, slice it up and make him fries. Oh, that's not good. That's right here. There's a lot of things I love about this comic book, but one of them, and I've been really paying attention to this in everything I look at now, is Eduardo Risso's use of blacks. Not just characters, but silhouettes. Not since Sin City has anyone done as good a job with inks, in my humble opinion. I'm presuming Eduardo Risso is doing his own pencils and inks, and that Patricia Mulville is doing the colors, and matching the reds here really sort of takes away from Vic, who is sneaking in through the back. Vic is the only Minuteman who does not wear a tie, and, well, Loop doesn't even, you can barely get him to wear a suit. I'm sure he's got tennis shoes on. Oh, that's a tragedy. Can't tell you what I'm going backward for. But, continuing, Loop orders fries while the chef is making, like, fancy spaghetti. Eggplant spaghetti, I'm sure. While Lono and Augustus Medici is really taken aback by the idea of forgiving Kostya, Helena Kostya, and Javier Vasco. And Lono doesn't really explain himself. It is a power move. It's a huge power move. It's really typically the power move that the more experienced individual would bring to the table, not the default aggressive individual. Now, the other thing is that 3 members of the trust have been killed, and that makes for an even number, and an even number can't decide anything. It's a problem, because if you have 10 people voting, you can get a split decision. So that has to be dealt with. And while he is counseling Augustus Medici to forgive them, this is playing out across town. Loop sees Vic in the kitchen. Loop sees his dinner being brought out. And then Loop turns his back on the waiter and gets out of his seat and knocks over the tray, and it distracts all of Megan Dietrich's guards, and it gives Vic a moment to put a hole in her menu. And look at her eyes. Look at how well drawn this is. A little bit of smoke. Him. There's a saying, there's a book that got released in like 2004 called the Ninjitsu Bible, the Ninja Bible. And this guy, a Scottish guy, or I think he's from Wales, the Isle of Wight or something, went to Japan and got all the old ninja texts translated into English. For a long time, unless Thomas Cleary did it, there wasn't anything you could read that had been written in traditional Japanese. And he mostly translated fiction. He did some spiritual works too. But this guy, I want to say his name is Alan or Peter or something. He went and translated. I really love how this fits this guy's shoulder. That's just amazing. That's luck, but it's amazing. So, this guy went and translated all the ninja texts, and there's a saying that they have that is, if the gap exists even for a moment, the ninja can perceive it. And so, what a ninja's job was traditionally was to be raking the leaves or fixing the roadside right outside a rich man's mansion. And when they opened the gates, even for a moment, to see whatever was inside and take a visual photograph that he could then draw from memory or relate to someone else. That's really what spying was for a long time. You really had to lay eyes on it. And so here, this ninja creeps through the doors, and what he really does in this moment, Aeon Flux, my favorite, is weaken Augustus Medici. If House Medici and House Dietrich had joined with Benito, that would have really upset the balance of the trust. Now they are also down to 9 families. 4 families have been eliminated, or 4 members have been eliminated, and their children need to be brought up to speed. Fulvio Carlito Fulvio, his children were also murdered, so presumably that house is completely dead. If Megan doesn't have kids, her house is completely dead. So that's 13 down to 11. What we are watching is, when you talk about in media res, right? This story didn't start with Graves getting Dizzy out of prison and giving her a briefcase with a gun and 100 bullets. This story started with the beginning of the United States of America. What we're watching is the climax. What we're watching is the ending, the final shootout. That's what this story represents. And Aeon was great from the days of the MTV animated series, which is kind of what got me to go to animation school in some ways. Peter Chung now teaches at Cal Arts right out here in LA, well, Valencia, up by Magic Mountain. The movie wasn't very good, but I was happy they made it. You know, for a long time, I've sort of struggled with the artistic career path of going to school until they give you an office at the school, or until you make something big and then you go back and teach at the school again. That never sat right with me, but I have not been able to make my cartoon yet anyhow. So anyhow, Lono and Augustus Medici are enjoying coffee while Megan Dietrich is being murdered. And if he knew this, he would probably take this opportunity to kill Lono. He won't have this opportunity again. These scenes happen once. This bit where you get to threaten someone, you only get that threat once. And if you're not ready, like between Josie Wales and Ten Bears, if you're not ready to take matters into your own hands the first time, there won't be a second time. You have to be ready the first time. The first negotiation has to be everything or nothing. You can't renegotiate. There's no renegotiating. If you lose your leverage, you're done. You're out of the game. And that's why I'm glad more than anything else that I still own my intellectual property. I think I might have skipped the, I hope I didn't skip the ad for Dred Stewart, and R.A. Salvador has an ad in here too. So, as Lono is leaving, Augustus Medici goes for this sort of Columbo moment and says, Lono, and we're going to get back to that. This is the movie by Darren Aronofsky with, I think that wasn't it Hugh Jackman? I don't know. Doesn't matter. Doesn't it say? Guess not. Anyhow, Augustus Medici says, Lono, was it you who set that guy on fire on the beach? And Lono says, God, you know what? That was so long ago, I don't even remember. My memory's probably no better than yours. How's that? That presidents fall. And so, Lono, Augustus Medici hiring Lono was the worst mistake he could have ever made. In some ways, it's the best decision, but it's also the worst mistake because he is no longer the big dog in the room. Graves may have let Augustus Medici believe that he was in charge. The Clint Eastwood character will do that. The Ranger will do that. But Beowulf will not. There's only one king in the room. And if you're a king, then he's an emperor. And if you're an emperor, then he's a god. If he's younger and stronger and he's better with a knife and you don't have a gun, then guess what? You ain't in control. So, getting out, of course, Lono and Vic talk. And here we get something interesting. These two kids who are harassing the fat chick are now going to go after Lono. Now, this might be coincidence and they might be hired, but they've got, a Kusarigama without the blade and a knife. And that's not going to be enough. You really didn't think this through, did you? Yeah, that's 100 Bullets 66. Castlevania. Castlevania was a great cartoon series by Warren Ellis. The cartoon was really good. Aeon Flux was awesome. Everything about Aeon Flux was awesome. They had a video game that wasn't so good. You can watch the live play on YouTube. It's really not very good. I don't care about wrestling. Masters of Horror. Batman. Batman's awesome. Probably never going to do Batman on this channel. When I sold all my comics in 2017, I remember thinking to myself, I'll never do a comics channel where I just review comics. That's so lame. I'll never do that. It's for fucking fags. That's terrible. That's gay. And here I am doing it. But I have to advertise my books somehow. And I wish I hadn't sold my comics, but comics are cheaper than ever right now. And I could probably get most of them back for pennies on the dollar, for probably less than what I sold them for. If you haven't read the Dred Stewart series, you really should. Treat yourself. 100 Bullets 66. I love this cover. All right, talk to you guys tomorrow.